great amongst the Ottomans. So by Britain and France embracing Russia in an alliance, it checkmated the Ottoman Empire. The only way you could do now is to turn to Germany, nothing else. The pieces are being moved in the chessboard. What the British and the French also did was to offer to Russia Constantinople. And Russia is so happy. This is our spiritual capital. This is where Hagia Sophia is. And so Russia is happy to enter into this alliance with Britain and France. And then came the First World War. And when the Russian forces were within an arm's length of Constantinople to take it, the Zionists struck. They offered Russia one thing from the front door, and they stabbed Russia from the back door. The Zionists struck in October of 1917 with the Bolshevik Revolution. As soon as the Bolshevik Revolution is conducted by Russian Jews, yeah. This is not a secret. As soon as the Bolshevik Revolution took place, the new Bolshevik government took Russia out of the war. Why? Why did you take Russia out of the war immediately that the revolution took place? Immediately. Why? Because the Bolshevik Revolution was a Zionist revolution. And the Zionists did not want Russia to get Constantinople, because they perceived Russia and Rome to constitute the most potent threat to their designs in the Holy Land for the establishment of a state of Israel. That's why. Not only did the Bolshevik Revolution result in Russia being taken out of the war, and therefore Constantinople is safe, but they then proceeded to bring about a communist revolution. Communism or Marxist ideology, delivering an economic system, an economic philosophy which had much in it that is meritorious. Oh yes. And there are many in Russia today, and many in the former Soviet Union, who look back to communism with nostalgia, because in many respects that was superiorism to this dog-eat-dog capitalism that they have today. Oh yes. But that was just the icing on the cake. Inside the cake was a rotten apple. The icing on the cake was all the nice labor laws which ensured labor justice and so on. But inside the cake, what the communist Soviet Union, which now is established, was doing was waging war on religion in general and waging war on Rome in particular, seeking to destroy the Christian faith, seeking to destroy monasteries, churches, killing the priests and the scholars. And this continued in the Soviet Union for years and years and years and years. The Soviet Union not only waged that war on Rome on Israel's behalf, but more than that. When Israel came into being in 1948, it is the Soviet Union which then opened its doors for millions of Russian Jews to migrate to the Holy Land, while pretending to be friends of the Arabs. And so Israel came into being in 1948. And within a few years you saw the traffic of Russian Jews migrating to Israel. In 1954, something strange and mysterious took place. And up to this day, I don't think the Russian people understand how and why it took place. In 1954, 6 years after Israel was born, the Soviet Union, under the leadership of Nikita Khrushchev, who was not a Russian, he was a Ukrainian, transferred the territory of Crimea, which was for hundreds of years Russian territory, transferred it to Ukraine. So the people of Ukraine went to sleep as citizens of Russia and woke up next morning without any consultation whatsoever as citizens of Ukraine. Hey, how come? We were never consulted. We had no part to play at all in this transfer of the territory. Why did the Soviet Union transfer the territory of Crimea from Russia to Ukraine in 1954? We say, from the perspective of Islamic eschatology, that this transfer of power has more to do in it than tourism. Yeah, it's not because Crimea is a tourist designation with all the spas and so on, not at all. Answer is, the Soviet Union is sabotaging Russia. As the Soviet Union sabotaged Russia in 1917 by taking Russia out of the war when Constantinople was just an arm's length away, so too in 1954 the Soviet Union sabotaged Russia, so that Russia will now be in a precarious position because the Russian fleet, the Black Sea Fleet, is located in a naval base in Crimea. The Russian fleet has been there for 200-300 years. But now it's no longer Russian territory. So if a tomorrow comes when a Ukrainian government comes into being that is pro-West, the noose will be around the neck of Russia. And so now, from the perspective of Islamic eschatology, we can proceed with the topic Islam, Russia, and Crimea. What happened in this so-called color revolution, where it's called rent a mob, you pay them the money and they go out on the streets, and you pay them the money and they go and start random shooting, sniping and so on, snipers, rent a mob, and you pay these mercenaries, and doing it in Venezuela now, to incite a revolution against the democratically elected government in Ukraine. And after about 3 months of demonstrations and rioting on the streets of Ukraine, the president of Ukraine fled out of Ukraine. And we felt that Russia had been outmaneuvered and that the Zionists have now secured the last link that they needed to put the chain around Russia's neck. Remember, the transfer of the territory from Russia to Ukraine, and now a color revolution to bring into power in Ukraine a pro-Western government, which will be anti-Russia. And as a consequence, the rope will be around Russia's neck, that the naval base in Crimea will now be in jeopardy. Russia can no longer consider itself a superpower. Now, if you lose. If Russia loses Crimea, Russia's credentials as a superpower will now be in doubt. What did Russia do? What has happened over the last few days constitutes, in my opinion, the first major setback, the Zionist movement has ever experienced in its history of more than 100 years. That is the implication of what has occurred in the last few days. That instead of the rope being around Russia's neck, Russia was able to take steps to emerge stronger than it has ever been before. From 1954, when Crimea was handed over to Ukraine in a very undemocratic way, without any consultation of the people, without the permission of the people of Crimea, and consultation with the Russian people, no, nothing of the sort. In this very undemocratic way. Since 1954 to this day, Russia's position in Crimea has always been problematic. Ebbs and flows, ups and downs in the relationship. Sometimes the Crimeans, the Ukrainians are threatening Russia, we're going to terminate the lease. You're going to have to get pack up and move. Instead of that relationship that they had from 1954 to today, which was precarious, which is vulnerable, Russia now has, with the consent of the people of Crimea, who voted overwhelmingly in favor of union with Russia, and Russia has incorporated Crimea in its territory. So Crimea today is once again a part of Russia, and it is time for Imran Hosein to celebrate. It is time for Imran Hosein to celebrate. The only ones who will not join me in celebrating is Dajjal's warriors out there in Syria. And Dajjal's warriors, no matter what kind of jihad they say they are in, no matter who they are, they say they are mujahideen, ask me, where are you getting your weapons from? These sophisticated weapons that you're using, have you manufactured them yourself? Answer me truthfully if it is still possible for you to speak the truth. The answer is, it is the enemies of Islam who are supplying all the weapons. And you want to tell me you are engaged in a legitimate jihad? What rubbish! Since when do the enemies of Islam provide the weapons for a legitimate jihad? Since when? The fact that Crimea is now Russian territory is not only a cause for rejoicing amongst those Muslims who have a little bit of knowledge, who are different from the cattle. The cattle have no knowledge. But more than that, it now provides opportunities for the world of Islam, not the governments, because the governments are controlled. What are the opportunities? The Zionist-controlled Western world has been shouting from the mountaintops, we're going to punish Russia. They're using the German Chancellor most of all. We're going to impose sanctions on Russia. We're going to punish Russia.